And Kim, we got Chelsea here. What do you want to ask her?
How do you find your contractors?
For the design projects, most of the contractors are already in place with the property owners and they've engaged with them. And these types of investors have worked on, not to say it's not their 100th deal, but they've done many multifamily deals in the markets that they're working in. So they have their teams lined up. And so we'll be a resource if we, let's say in Oklahoma, we're working on projects and, now I know contacts there, I'll share it with other investors that are working on projects, and just like in any business, right? If they're a good, reputable person, but word of mouth.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. I'm very excited for today's show. It's one of our Ask the Expert episodes. We have two amazing women on the line with us right now. We have Chelsea Garber and Kimberly McCall. So first, we introduced the more experienced investor out of the two, and Chelsea, glad to have you on the show. Welcome.
Brian, happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a long time in the making. So, we were talking just before the show. We met about 2 years ago, and it's been a lot of fun been a lot of fun following you and seeing what you guys been doing. So, welcome.
Yeah, no, and likewise, I was going into Michael Blanc's program, I think, as you were coming out.
Yeah.
And it's been absolutely incredible. I remember sitting next to you at his event 2 summers ago in Dallas, and you were just kind of like on the brink of your first deal. And I was just all jazzed up, and watching what's happened between now and then has really just been astounding. So hats off to you.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. You go to those events and you come out with just a ton of energy and you're just ready to go. And the hard part's always, sustaining that afterwards. But we had our first deal under contract when we went there, and we closed on that one like a month or two afterwards. And it's just been a fun ride ever since. So, and I think, actually, I know that the same event, Dealmaker Live, is going to be live in Dallas again in July. So actual people in the same room as each other again. Amazing.
Yeah, don't quote me, but I think it's July 15th to 17th. It's a Thursday through Saturday, or 17th to 19th. We got to look at the calendar. But are you planning on being there, or are you going to be midst of moving?
I will be there, and my partner and I are speaking on the Friday evening. So 15th through 17th is the dates, and Eric and I are going to be on stage on the 16th, the Friday evening. So
awesome. Well, I'll be there cheering you on.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great event. And so everybody who's listening, go to Michael Blanc's event. It's going to be fun. You meet Chelsea, you can meet me, and we'll have a good time. But that's it, Chelsea. Well, let's talk about you. Give us an idea of who you are, where you come from. Tell us all about your background, and just kind of lead us up to how you got into multifamily.
Yeah, definitely. So Chelsea Garber, born and raised in New York, just outside of Manhattan. Spent most of my adult life and career in New York City. Was trained, actually, my professional background is in both interior design and construction. So worked for some of the top design firms in the country in New York, and went on to start my own design firm. So focused largely in high-end residential, people with 2 or 3 homes and penthouses in the city, big house in the Hamptons, a ranch out west, you name it. And it was just a great experience, as it was actually during the time of the recession. So it was an interesting time because I was coming fresh out of college, and as most of my colleagues were unfortunately losing their jobs, I went from being, junior to senior within a year. So, I was working in homes of Tommy Hilfiger, Regis Philbin, like just exorbitant amount of wealth. And, what people would spend on just the lifestyle was so fascinating to be surrounded by that much money, really, and the access to it. So, and worked for a firm in Greenwich, Connecticut. So anyways, really just got to see how wealthy people lived and what it was like, and went on to work closely with them for most of my career. As I mentioned, not only did I do residential design, but I also did over probably about 1 million square feet of commercial office space in both New York and California. And ultimately, what ended up happening was I got burnt out, like most
Hmm.
people do. I was in my late 20s. I thought that by achieving a certain number of income and by having X amount of dollars in my bank account was going to be like ultimate happiness. And in fact, it was quite the opposite. I was,
Mhm.
physically didn't feel well, mentally didn't feel well. My phone was ringing all the
Hmm.
time. I was stressed out, managing, 5, 10, $15 million projects and running around New York City. And
Hmm.
at that point, I said to myself, there has to be a better way to do this, this thing
Yeah.
called life. And like most people, this was probably 3 years ago. I was really got into the podcast. Bigger Pockets was,
Hmm.
of course, big at the time, was indulging in books and podcasts and, you name it. I was into it. And I figured, okay, well, again, I knew I wanted to get into multifamily, but I wasn't quite sure how. So I made the mistake of flipping homes.
Hmm.
I did a couple of those.
I,
Keyword
I love I
couple.
love I love how you put it. I made the mistake of flipping homes. So
Yeah, I could
yeah,
I could spend the whole podcast talking about why not to go into single family
right.
investing. And ultimately, and I shouldn't say there's a niche and everybody has their specialty.
Hmm.
I loved the single family flips for a couple of reasons. One, I got to work with, take my background of, professional working on home remodels, and I eliminated the end user. I got to work, with contractors and all the tradespeople and
Hmm.
brokers, and it taught me a lot of valuable lessons. I was flipping houses in Birmingham, Alabama. I was living in New York at the time, getting ready to move to California. So learning out of state, going to the
Yeah.
market, building a team, and ultimately there was just a lot of stress and not a lot of money, and nothing about it in my mind was scalable to the solutions that I wanted to be at,
Hmm.
nor financially made sense. It was a stressful situation. So after that experience, I moved to California. I was like, I'm getting into multifamily. I joined Michael Blanc's mentorship program, as
Yep.
we discussed, that that's where we've met. And, from there, I really got to learn the ins and outs of multifamily. And it was really eye opening. I think initially I thought, the first thing, you go into it and you only know what you know. So
Yeah.
I thought, oh, this is going to be great. Like, I'm going to become this full-time multifamily investor. And, I understand it's going to take some hard work, but, I can get a deal done. So really for the first year and going through Michael's program, worked closely with my mentor, who I absolutely adore and still speak with regularly. But I really thought I could take down these properties by myself, like a 1-2 million, something
Oh yeah.
small. And that really wasn't the case. And I think when I met you, Brian, in person at his event was really eye-opening to see all these
Hmm.
amazing partnerships that people had been forming, and they were taking down bigger deals and, networking. And I realized, I was like, I've been doing this all wrong, like thinking that I could just do this on my own and raise some capital. And not to
Hmm.
say that I couldn't have, but, I wasn't really quite aware of this being such a, it's just such a great community and resource, and everybody wants to help one another. So I actually met my now, business partners at Tate Seymour and Carl York from Greenlight Equity Group at Michael Blanc's event, which was, again, almost will be 2 years ago this July. And really what happened was, I kept in touch with Tate particularly and saw him online. I was like, you're living the best life. You're skiing on powder days, you're mountain bike riding, you're working on these like new development projects, land entitlement. And
Oh
in
yeah.
any event, he was definitely a couple steps ahead of me in the business. And we basically, this past summer, I was in a situation where I'm ready to move. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I was like, I'd been in California for almost a year and a half, 2 years. Everything with COVID had just kind of gone to crap. Like the world was falling apart. And I was like, you know what? Now's my chance. Like, I'm going to move out to Utah. I live in Park City. And this is a great opportunity to sync up with, the guys at Greenlight and bring my resources, which were, broker relations and deal sourcing and some capital, and kind of round off the team and how could
Yeah.
we work together. And that's kind of, in the last 6 months, about 6 months now, really where we've mainly been focused on is, acquiring larger properties,
Hmm.
50, 100 plus units. And I really have to say that I couldn't have gotten there without the networking and the partnerships and just kind of fully indulging. And also on top of that, I did realize in that first year of the mentorship program that, okay, they kind of sell you, nothing against Michael Blanc's mentorship program. I don't know what they sold you on, but when I got on, they said, oh yeah, if you get 100 unit property in your first year, like, they're like, quit your job. They literally told me to quit my job. Like, don't take on any more projects. Don't do this. And I was like, oh, that would be great. I don't have to do any more design projects. And that wasn't the case. So I had multiple
not quite.
Yeah. Far from it. I'm sure that guy's probably fired, but if not, he should be. So, kind of interestingly, what did happen though is COVID hit, deal flow kind of came to a stop. People didn't know what was going on in the markets. At that point, I had been going to Oklahoma, which is, where we invest in one of my target markets.
Yep.
Built up my teams, everything was ready to strike. And it kind of was like, well, now what, right? I think we were all kind of sitting in the same spot. Like, are we going to sit on the sidelines? Or are we going to do something? So I said, you know what, now's actually the perfect time to have sort of this rebirth of my design business. And what came out of COVID for me was, a couple of things. Was number one, ROI ByDesign, which is my multifamily design firm that works with multifamily investors on largely C-class value add opportunities. So everything from exterior design, interior design, rebranding, repositioning, you name it. We're doing new development projects as well. But, that just kind of really realigned me with the people that were doing deals. And I'm talking 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Geez, we even have a client now the guy is younger than me, I think, and he's got 6,000 doors.
Wow.
Imagine that. So selfishly, I got myself a lot closer to the people that were getting things done, and in return are helping people on their properties, right? To come up with better solutions to get higher returns. And so it was really just more, for the first time in my life, I felt really aligned with my passion for multifamily, my knowledge in construction, design, and remodeling, and brought those two together. And, so within the last 6 months, have had or 6 to 9 months, should say, really just had a new business vertical that totally took off and has been extremely successful. And I formed a partnership with two great guys here in Utah, and we have, quite a few doors, under our belt, and quite a few in front of us. So it's been an exciting ride, but I will say it was a lot of patience and a lot of persistence. Like, it took nearly almost 2 years to get into my first deal, and every day just chipped away at something. It was a little thing. Some days I could spend more times, other days I could spend less, but ultimately getting to the place where I am now, I would just say to, all the listeners that it doesn't happen overnight. Some people it does sooner rather than later. And some people can go quit their W-2 job right away. And I just happen to keep a couple things in the fire because I like multiple streams of income and whatnot. But yeah, and high level, where I'm at, kind of how I got there. And we can certainly dive into some of those details.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of goodness there. First of all, with my experience, it wasn't until I partnered with people before we started having success. When it was Brian Briscoe working by himself, I was getting a lot of doors closed, a lot of doors slammed in my face, hypothetically, but or really it was unreturned phone calls and unreturned emails and whatnot. And then to your other point, so something I actually wanted to dive in a little more on is just the ROI by design concept, because I think it's a very valuable tool. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, my understanding is you come in, you help people plan the renovations up to shopping list. You tell them everything they need to buy to install. Can you tell us a little bit about the process, how that works? And obviously you've already talked about how valuable it is to other people. I just want to dive in a little bit more about the process, how it works, and how people can use it.
Yeah, definitely. So we work with investors nationally and on projects nationally. Assets 20, we've done up to 200 units. And essentially we act as a consultant, right? As a professional design team, we come in and based upon your budget and scope of work, we put together a full exterior, interior package. Again, depending if that's your scope, but typically per se, exterior would, include, let's say, paint colors or wood accents, hardscaping and landscaping suggestions, new signage and wayfinding, rebranding, coming up with a new name, color scheme, and to full on interior remodels, right? We'll make selections as from everything from flooring to paint colors to appliances to plumbing, as well as exterior amenity spaces. And we're adding what are some really cost effective things here? Game courts. Game courts are easy to make. Dog parks. It depends on your demographic and again what your budget is. We're redesigning clubhouses and leasing offices and furnishing them. So it's really a one-stop shop for everything multifamily, remodeling. And we work for a flat fee. And again, our fees are relatively low, just to give you an idea on cost, because people, it's obviously always the burning question. We're doing full exterior, interior packages anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000. And that calls out a shopping list with all of the materials, places that you're already probably shopping at. We'll work with local vendors. We'll partner up. Again, it comes back to being a team sport. We're just another tool in the tool belt. How can we set your asset up for success? Really, I think that the company came to life when I saw so many properties and so much money going into them, and the end result wasn't necessarily what I believed was the best return on your investment. Hence, ROI by Design was born. And yeah, we've got about anywhere from at least 20 to 30 projects under our belt now, and major cities, secondary markets, tertiary markets. So we're happy to work with people. Our values and our mission is to help as many investors as possible increase the return on their investment through cost-effective design and remodeling solutions. And that's what we do. And, we put together design packages and renderings and all that fun stuff and tangible materials to paint colors to touch and feel and see. So it's fun. And we just love what we do.
Awesome. Yeah. And for everybody listening, we're going to put a link to the website in the show notes. So if you're interested in any of that, check out the show notes, go to the website, contact Chelsea and go with it. And quite frankly, I mean, the number you spit out as your fee when you're doing a 100 unit, 200 unit property, it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, that's something that's well worth the service that you provide. So I think it's an amazing service. Love it. And shopping lists and everything. Just click buy. Super easy. So that said, let's shift gears. One question I always like to ask everyone is what their motivation is, and I call it the big burning why. So Chelsea, what's your big burning why?
So my motivation is definitely, I think like most people, is putting money aside is time, right? Time to do the things that I love. I'm an avid skier. I have recently gotten back into horseback riding. I'm going to start competing again. So, to get to that level, it requires money and it requires time, a lot of both. And, and my goal is, at this point, I don't have a family, but I'd like to set up a portfolio with, both passive and active investments that give me the opportunity to have all the time to do all the things that I love: travel, ski, ride my horses, spend time with my family. and really, I love everything multifamily. It's for me, it's not like, oh, let's retire in 10 years. It's let's keep doing this and create more time and more money.
In my opinion, you're in the best place in the world for a lot of those activities you said. So, I grew up a stone's throw from Park City, just other side of the mountains in the Salt Lake Valley, but best skiing in the world right there. And I'm guessing you and Tate every once in a while, you hit the slopes together, right?
Oh, for sure. We're definitely living our best mountain lives out here. I mean, apparently this is a thing here that I know people that I ski with have in their contracts that on powder days, they can show up late to work. I obviously don't have a contract other than the one with myself. And it was just so epic to go. There was like nothing like getting the day started skiing in 18 inches of fresh snow and showing up for my first Zoom at 10:30, like the best day ever.
I had a teacher at grad school. I was at University of Utah, which, once again, just right by Parley's Canyon up to Park City. But during the winter semester, he would only teach afternoon classes for that reason. Yeah. And there were several times he would literally show up still wearing his, his ski pants and his ski coat. And it'd just be like first 5 minutes of the class was like, oh man, skiing today. He had like the backcountry passes and everything. But yeah, that's what I want to do. I'm going to be, skiing a lot of, Idaho mountains in the future. But eventually I'll get down and, maybe you, me and Tate can go ski, Park City or Snowbird or something like that. But be a lot of fun. So Chelsea, switching gears again, let's talk about one of the deals you guys have done or have coming up and give the listeners an idea of what you and your team do.
Yeah, so we invest in C-class, value add, multifamily, typically 50, 100 plus. I'd say 100 plus is the sweet spot. Right now, our target markets are Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Ohio, Columbus. We just put a new deal under contract in Oklahoma City, 51 unit, really great deal because actually the broker that we're working with is purchasing the property next door they're about to close on. And we are going to rebrand and reposition these two assets together as a 93 unit property. So we're going to really gain here from the scalability of operating and selling as a portfolio. So we're really excited about that. And we have an LOI out right now on a 350 plus unit property, would just really just take things to the next level and hoping, to scale quickly. And our goal is 2,500 doors in Oklahoma in the next 2 years. And
nice.
Got to start with one and get on track.
Yeah, I mean, it always starts with one. And I know you guys have gotten several under contract recently and closed on a couple. And, incidentally, Tate's coming on the podcast, next week. So we'll get to talk more in detail about some of those. Hopefully when he comes on next week, that LOI is turned into a contract, but we'll see about that. But good luck with that one. And just curious, a lot of people talk, Sunbelt states, what do you guys like about Columbus?
I can't speak as much on Columbus as Tate can, because he's from there and he also has some partners there. I can speak all day about Oklahoma and the strong, slow, steady economy. But Columbus and Oklahoma, I think they share a lot of similarities, influx of people, rent growth, low unemployment, just relatively inexpensive places to live with good quality of life. So both are on the very much upward trajectory with no stopping in sight. And I can say for sure that both have, just very low supply and high demand in the C-class assets. So we're bullish on both.
And having a partner that's from Columbus, that's key right there. That's a competitive advantage that a lot of people don't have. And incidentally, there's a couple investors that live out here in DC that are also have their eyes on Columbus. So not necessarily an anomaly. I just don't know much about it. So thanks for that. And I'll definitely hit Tate with that question next week. Why Columbus? But
he's from Cincinnati, which is super close, but Columbus is the hot market there.
Sounds good. All right. Now, last question before we bring Kim on. What's next for you?
What's next for me? Well, like I said before, it might be a little repetitive, but 2,500 doors in Oklahoma. So that's going to be new partnership, new capital sources, new off-market deals, and, laying one brick at a time to get there.
Yeah. So what's next for you is continuing to do what you've been doing. Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
There you go. Yeah.
And spending more time doing it.
Yeah. I like the analogy, one brick at a time. You're building a wall, you're just placing a brick down. Each individual brick by itself may not seem like a lot, but you keep on doing it over and over again, and you can build a lot. So anyway, let's shift gears again, and we got Kimberly McCall with us. So Kim, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Glad to have you. So now, incidentally, just want to touch on this briefly, just so everybody who's listened to this knows that, Kim's calling from her car right now. Tell us why you're calling from your car.
I have 5 wonderful, rambunctious children at home.
Yep.
So they would ask me for everything under the sun. As soon as they hear my voice talking, they want mom. Yeah. Like if I'm just quiet working away at my desk, they leave me alone. As soon as I start talking to someone, they're like, "Oh, hi,
mom."
And my 2-year-old, I swear he loves it. He wants to be on every Zoom call. He's like, "Hello." He peeks his head in.
Yeah. My youngest is 5, and incidentally, we have 5 kids too, but a little older than your 5 kids. But my 5-year-old has been on many Zoom calls, and a lot of times she'll just come and sit on my lap, and as I'm finishing up calls, and I think my wife knows. I mean, she has access to my calendar on the phone, so I think she knows when my last call of the day is, and she probably sends my daughter down to remind me. Totally understand that, but thanks for doing what you do to get on the podcast today. It's something I appreciate. But
I'm excited.
Yeah. That said, let's talk about you. Tell us about yourself and your background, and lead us up to what got you into multifamily.
Well, it's so funny. I'm so glad and so honored to be on with Chelsea. You sent the bio, so of course immediately have to look her up, and I feel like we were destined to be on this call together. But my husband he's in construction, and he's been doing it for a while. I of course been kind of a stay-at-home mom, but I would watch one too many HGTV shows, and we decided to single family houses.
Yeah.
And we started there, and oh my goodness, so you guys are well aware, Chelsea shared that with us. It was hilarious. I'm like, oh my God. Yes, we know. We did. We wanted to make it different. My part was like the design. I got to pick colors and pretty things and make them beautiful. I went on your profile. I loved it. The bios. I want to beautify, these properties, the community. And I noticed that, like, once we flipped a house and it looked great, you see the neighbors, sprucing up theirs, and it has a lasting effect. So there was good things, but we learned fast that wasn't the way. That was not. I think our biggest mistake when it came to flipping, which is actually I receive it as a blessing in disguise, that we didn't do teams. We didn't create a team for flipping. We did a lot ourselves. So we had 4 kids, mostly at that time, in the houses doing demo, and they'd come help me pick colors and carpet and all the good stuff, and we did it ourselves. And it took a lot out of us. It took a lot out of my husband. He works a full-time job. We'd flip. He would go from working full-time to going to the house to flip. And some days there was 24-hour. He was on the clock all like throughout the night and in the morning and back to work. And so I think it put him in I don't think, I know it put him in the hospital. And he was like, having some heart issues. And I was like, this is not the way. This is not the way. So I just kept learning in podcasts. I was still on that track of learning, reading, tons of books, just like Chelsea mentioned. And then I came across multifamily. We took a class once on mobile home parks. And I seen this lady, she was a fantastic teacher. And then later we asked one of our contacts in the business. We said, where does she go? I know she's not with your company. They mentioned that she was with Dave Lindahl's program. So we followed her. She probably is not even aware, but we followed her there because she had such great teaching. And that's how we got into multifamily. Just, nice. The hard knocks of single family flips and just continuing to try to grow.
So you also made the mistake of flipping houses, like Chelsea.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't really flip a house, but we've gotten a couple of our rentals ready for sale, and I've had several days where you leave your W-2 job, you drive straight to the property, you work till 9-10 o'clock, and some nights it's just like, you know what, I'm just gonna sleep on the floor right there. Get up the next morning, drive to work. And I've done that, and it's not something that I want to keep doing. So, multifamily, right? So Kim,
passive.
If you could distill your big burning why down to 1 or 2 sentences, what would that be?
It definitely aligns with everyone's legacy wealth, financial freedom. But my biggest why that I hardly share. I'm from an Indian reservation in Washington State, and I see the housing crisis. There's not a lot of homes there. So I figure if I can make it out here, learn from all these people and resource and networks, maybe I can go home and try to help our community with housing.
Yeah. And that's huge. Give back to your community, and, I grew up, in and around some of the reservations. My grandfather spent a lot of time down in Arizona on the reservations, and it's, the ones I've seen, it's not a good situation. There's not a lot of wealth. There's not a lot of resources. So I think that's very, very good of you to give back to that community. All right. So let's do this now. Let's turn to where I hand the mic over to Kim, and Kim, we got Chelsea here. What do you want to ask her?
Oh, I had like I have a list of questions. I do, but I will kind of try to make it brief. Design. I do want to make the comment, Chelsea. I love that about you, like the design and beautifying and just everything. I guess when it comes to design, to keep it brief and not, gush over it. How do you find your contractors? Like that's a big thing to make those teams.
Yeah, so for the design projects, we actually are working, most of the contractors are already in place with the property owners and they've engaged with them. And these types of investors have worked on, not to say it's not their 100th deal, but they've done many multifamily deals in the markets that they're working in. So they have their teams lined up. And so we'll be a resource if we, let's say in Oklahoma, we're working on projects and, now I know contacts there, I'll share it with other investors that are working on projects, and just like in any business, right? If they're a good, reputable person, but word of mouth. Yeah.
Okay. Referrals. I love it. I have another question. What about your morning routine? What does that look like?
That's one of my favorite questions, actually. So I have right now 3 coaches in the last 2 months. And for me, like above all else, like mindset and health are the 2 most important things. Without your health, you don't have your mind and you don't have anything else. And without your mind, the same, right? So I am huge on, I wake up every day at 5 o'clock. I meditate. I have a journal where I write 10 things that I'm grateful for that I have, 10 things I'm grateful for that I don't have. Drink a huge glass of water. I no longer pick up my phone. It's like the last thing I do. And I'll typically just read like a little bit of the news, like 10, 15 minutes. I don't watch TV. I'm a big avid reader. So to me, the morning is my quiet time. And then I do some work for an hour or 2 and hit the gym every day at about 7:30 to 9.
I love it. What about your deal criteria? I hear Oklahoma City, 2,500. The doors ranges from 50 to 100 with 100 as your sweet spot. C-class value add. Is there anything else that attracts you or that you'd want to look for in a deal?
I mean, for us, it's really a deal that, off market, right? Where you can find deals that are undervalued. It's all like going in on the buy side. So a true off market deal from maybe a mom and pop seller who are in some sort of distress or maybe no distress at all. And we can go in, put a third party property management in place, obviously take care of CapEx, interior updates, and bump the rents and sell in 3 to 5 years, depending on the property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I got a question for you, Chelsea. What's the competition like in Oklahoma City right now? Is it like everywhere else, or is it maybe a little less so than what you see in like a Dallas or a Houston?
I mean, it's definitely not Dallas, Denver, Miami, these huge markets. It's very competitive. I've seen a lot change there in the last 2 years, but there are deals to be found, and I believe that within any market.
Yep.
So we're seeing more compressed cap rates and people overspending. But again, that's why we've really just built strong relationships with brokers and are looking, off market and doing direct to seller.
Can you, I know, and we can sum it up fast, but do you have like a big mistake or a big success that you can share with us? Something that we can learn from, something that we could implement?
Yeah, I think kind of going back, I'd say my first biggest mistake was thinking that I could do this alone. So I would say number one, like, building teams, and your network is where your wealth is, and adding value, right? Going into every conversation, adding value.
Yeah, I like that. And, I'll add, assuming too much, some on our first deals, I think we assumed that the property manager would take care of certain things. It's like when you go into it without owning anything, you're like, okay, the property manager should do A, B, C, and D, and making assumptions is probably one of the mistakes that I made, was assuming that our property manager would be able to, do everything that we expected him to do. And then later find out that they're really good at A and B, not so much C, and they can only kind of do D. that was a hard lesson for us.
And I would say to kind of separately, but to answer the second part of your question, what's been some of the wins? And I would say the real big wins are the relationships that we've built. And for me, being inexperienced 2 years ago was showing up in markets and showing that I was serious and going to Oklahoma. And I think, the people in Oklahoma are very nice, and I'm a nice woman, and it's probably refreshing. So I was easily able to have coffee and phone calls, but I continually showed up in those markets to show that I was serious, knowing that I was going to, to buy. And if I couldn't necessarily, hire the property management company, but we spent tons and tons of time working together, I would refer them and, say, I don't currently have a property with them, but I've spent a lot of time working with them and underwriting and chatting and learning about their business and, that kind of stuff. So going to the market and developing relationships is invaluable.
That's a great point. If you're investing out of state, I think one of the watershed moments in my so far short investing career, which is going to be a very long investing career, was getting in the car and driving to Columbia, South Carolina. It's an 8-hour drive. Okay. And up until then, I was just a voice on the phone. But, when I sat down with brokers and sat down with property managers, that changed the dynamic. And all of a sudden it was that trip where we got our first deal under contract, and it wasn't during that trip, but it was a relationship made on that trip that ended up getting that first thing under contract. So yeah. I think that's huge.
And just to add on to that too, little things, handwritten note cards as thank you, bringing a gift. Like there's a chocolate company here in Salt Lake, CK Cummings, you might know it, Brian, and bringing just little things, just tokens of appreciation to people. And it goes such a long way.
Yeah. It's really how to win friends and influence people. That's all it is.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to say thank you, Chelsea, for your time. I know people investing in Oklahoma City right now. Well, actually Tulsa, but in the same state. But I do know people investing in Oklahoma, and I'll definitely share your contact information if that's okay. And I'm excited. I'm like, yes, I want to work with Chelsea. That's all. Like, I love it.
Now you're on the right track, and we'll talk further outside of here, because anything I can do to help you like make that leap, or I'm happy to. And that's awesome. You have a bright future ahead.
Now, Kim, what markets are you guys looking in?
We're in Texas right now. We're working on some things in Texas. We got up our sleeve.
Yeah, I heard, and you're being mum about it, but hopefully we get you back soon on our first deal episode. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yes, we are excited.
Yes. So that said,
we'll be back.
Yep. Love to have you. So, well, that said, we're about out of time. Thank you, both of you, so much for coming on the podcast. This has been a lot of fun. Love talking to both of you. I think this is a great little conversation that I'd love to continue, but there's time constraints, right? So one last question for both of you. Chelsea, you go first. How can listeners learn more about you?
Would love to connect. You can find me, probably the best way is on LinkedIn, Chelsea Garber. Shoot me a message on there, and we can set up a time to speak further. And I have obviously ROI ByDesign, my design firm, which is just www.roi-bydesign.com. So if you're looking to remodel a property, just need help, with some pointers on paint colors, we've got you covered. And then as far as our investments, Greenlight Equity Group. So our website is www.glequitygroup.com, and you can sign up there to kind of keep in the know what we're working on and learn more about our team. And like I said, just here to connect and add value and see where synergies exist.
Yep. So we'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile and to the ROI ByDesign and your Greenlight website in the show notes. Anybody interested, you know where to find it. And Kim, same question for you. How can listeners learn more about you?
I am also on LinkedIn, Kimberly McCall. I have, Facebook, Instagram, but we have a website, multifamilyvaluepartners.com. But definitely LinkedIn is the easiest one as well.
All right, awesome. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll talk soon.